Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to PVL 2601. Today, we will be focusing on study unit 20, titled The Duty of Support in Respect of the Child. This study unit is basically similar to study unit 19 in certain aspects. So we're going to deal with those aspects in this study unit. Now, the barrier of the duty to support a child. Now we're going to explain again what the barriers of the duty to support the child lays on or focuses on. Firstly, the first group it focuses on, it's on the state. That only the state's duty is focused on where the child's parent or family fails to support the child or are unable to meet the maintenance and obligations of the maintenance in respect of the child. Remember, we did mention that the state would then provide social grants, foster grants, and the National Nutrition Feeding Program. Yes, those are one of the manners in which the state's duty to support of the child are. The second group are the parents of the child. Their duty to support exists on the operation of law. So the law lays a duty on the parents to support the child. Those are the first people that will be given the duty, or the duty rests on to support the child. Then when they fail to do so, that's when other people will be mentioned, like the grandparents of the child. Now the duty passes to the grandparent, where the parents of the child cannot support the child. Where the grandparents of the child fail to support the child or are unable to support the child, now the duty falls onto the siblings of the child. Now, when the siblings of the child are unable to take care or support the child, the duty now falls to the person who is not the child's parent, who's not the child's grandparent, or the child's siblings, but has a care of the child in terms of a court order or a parental responsibility and rights agreement which has been taken effect, or by an appointment by a parent who has sole care of the child while the parent was still alive. So in this case, it could, for example, the court can grant an order of a parental responsibility and right to any person who cares about the child, and that person now has the duty to support the child. Or it could be by a person who, the parent, the parent who has sole parental rights, or the child can appoint a person to support or take care of the child. Remember, we did also mention in the past that you knew that this can also take place whereby the parents appoint a guardian or a person to take care of the child in their will. So that's another way that this person can acquire rights to, or the duty rather, to support the child. Lastly, the duty to support the child now could also fall to a step parent. Well, at common law, the step parent was not obliged to maintain his or her stepchild. However, in the decision in the case of Haystack versus Haystack and MB and NB case, they held opposite view, stating that the step parent is obliged to maintain his or stepchild because the Constitution obliges a step-parent to provide his or stepchild with parental care. So now, because now we're done with the barriers of the duty to support the child, now we focus on the recovery of the expenses relating to the support. As we did mention in the previous study unit, that a person who has provided maintenance to a child or for a child does not have a right to recourse against the child. A parent who has spent in excess of his or her pro rata share may recover the expenses from the other parent. Lastly, the father who was maintaining the child and later finds out that the child is not their biological child, or they are not the biological father of the child, may have recourse on the expenses relating to the support. Now we move to our last focus for the study unit, which is the reciprocity of the duty of support. Now, the principle of reciprocity applies in respect of the duty of support between the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, and the children and the child. What this means is that, for example, whereby where the parents can support the child can also support the parents. Where the grandparents have supported the child can also support the grandparents. Where the siblings have supported the child can also support the siblings. So now the enforcement of this duty. Section 305, subsection 4 of the Children's Act provides that a person who is legally liable to maintain a child and fails to provide maintenance to their child will be, while liable to do so, is guilty of an offense. I remember, I think in 2018 or 2019, then the president of South Africa, Mr. Jacob Zuma, did mention that those parents who have court orders and are able to support their children or maintain their children but fail to do so will face imprisonment. So in this case now, Section 305(4) of the Children's Act supports that statement and provides that that person will be guilty of an offense. Now, the termination of the duty of support. The termination of the duties of support can take place by the death of the child, but not the death of the parent. Remember, in this previous study unit, we did mention that termination of maintenance or support of the child does not terminate while in the death of the parent. What happens is that the child can claim maintenance or duty of support from the estate of the parent. Now, the second method or way that a termination of duty of support can take place is by the adoption of the child, where the adoption, for example, the adoption application comes through in a positive way and it is granted by the court, then the maintenance, the termination of the duty of support now takes place. Another way that the termination of duty of support can take place is when the child becomes self-supporting. This is usually in a financial manner. So we move on to the another termination of support, the termination of duty to support, where the child enters into a civil union or a marriage, But note that the child can claim maintenance from his or her parents, grandparents, or siblings if their spouse, the child's spouse, or a union partner is unable to support them. So I'm going to highlight here that you must note that there is a difference between the termination of a maintenance order and the termination of a duty of support in respect of a child. So we're going to now highlight the difference in the termination of a maintenance order. Usually what happens in the maintenance order is that the duration of the maintenance is placed until, for example, the age of a child. So in case, and there are cases whereby the court might not highlight that the order would lapse at a certain age of a child. So in the case where the court order, or the maintenance order rather, stipulates that the maintenance will lapse at a certain age of a child, that's when the maintenance order will lapse at. And where the maintenance order does not stipulate that the maintenance order will lapse at the certain age of a child, the maintenance order continues until the child is self-supporting. So in the case whereby the maintenance order has lapsed at a certain age of the child can now, and if that child is not self-supporting at the child, they can also approach the court again to review their order, and they can also extend the maintenance order to suit the child until they are self-supporting. So in the case of B versus B, the court held that where the court does not stipulate that the order lapses at a certain age of a child, the maintenance continues until a child becomes self-supporting. So this is the case that states, talks about where the court order or the maintenance order does not stipulate where the court order lapses at a certain age of the child. Lastly, the termination of the duty of support. This one takes place where the child is self-supportive. The termination of the duty of support takes place where the child is self-supportive. This brings us to the end of our session. I hope everything was clear. If you have any questions, please state them in the description box and we'll have them answered. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Best wishes with your exams.